Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. This is the Daily Medicine transmission for March 11th, 2021. Let's get out of studio mode here. Hope everyone's doing well. Welcome to the transmission. I got my overalls today because I'm going outside to work as soon as I'm done here. It's important that we are moving our bodies. We're taking care of our health and our physicality right now. And one of the things that came through pretty strongly today in this transmission, at least, is to be in tune with our body, to move our body, to utilize natural rhythm in order to break up things that are stuck, break up stagnation, move things around, and also to ground ourselves. That is, once we become present in our own body, that is one of the most grounding practices that we can engage in. This is why things like Hatha Yoga and Tai Chi and Qigong, anything that is a movement art, even just dancing, right? Dancing, drumming requires a participation from the physical body in order to create rhythm. All of these types of practices that engage the body rhythmically or in some sort of flow they are one of the most grounding practices that we can engage in. And this is really important as we bring these peak experiences, especially yesterday with the Sun and Neptune together in Pisces. Talk about peak experience, whatever that was. We have to bring it back down into reality, ground it down into something substantial, and moving our body, using our body in a rhythmic way, is such a powerful tool. So I would encourage you, if you are struggling or not, even if you're not struggling, to bring these peak experiences down to the level of present material reality, that this is, moving the body and engaging in these types of practices. Even something as simple as like a 10-minute dance party by yourself is something that can change the resonance and also bring you into the present. Because it's one thing to have peak experiences, to have these insights and seeing through the eyes of source, however we characterize these experiences. It is one thing, and just like everything else in the universe, it is about the dualistic experience that provides the ability to create something new. So for as much as we want to have these, and we've had these experiences, these insights, these spiritual connections, we do have to bring them back down into reality, quote unquote reality, not to diminish the reality of these upper dimensions and these higher states of consciousness. They're just as real as anything else, but to bring it down into the present, into the physical form, because that's where we're all still operating from. And we are integrating these aspects together so that we can create something new. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be shoveling gravel into a drainage ditch at my house after I'm done here, and really get into the physical nature of the body. If you like physical labor, if it's something that makes you feel good, you might be a Lyran starseed. I've thought about, today I had this thought about, that series of jokes by Jeff Foxworthy of "You might be a redneck, you might be a starseed if," right? And Lyran starseeds, they love physical labor. They love using the physical body and to be in physical form. And so if that's something that you struggle with, you can always connect to the Lyran aspect to show you the way, give you some inspiration. And if you are one of those people that's like, I love to use I would love to shovel gravel all day, use my body, be an athlete, right? Get really into these physical movement practices, martial arts, for instance, any type of physical activity that pushes your body to the limit. You might be a Lyran starseed, because that is one of the main traits of the Lyrans. They not only are exploratory and very ancient in terms of starseed and star races and lineages, but they also have given humanity that work ethic that is really stimulated by fire and passion. And we are still in a new moon cycle that is about passion and how to redirect that passion and how to communicate it effectively. Oh boy, communication is really the way that we bring the peak experience down into reality. Either communicating with ourselves, communicating with those around us, just being able to communicate the experience in general is also another way of grounding these peak experiences into practical life here on Earth. And so there's some astrological aspects today that we're going to go over that really lend themselves to this perspective. And they're also, there's not a whole lot going on astrologically, and it does feel like this moment, almost a refractory period after yesterday. So however things manifested for you, they could be subtle, they could be not so subtle. I think it was across the board with what people are experiencing. We are in a dark moon phase right now. We are getting into the balsamic moon phase before the new moon on the 13th. This is not a time really to be making major decisions or taking action. It is time to really, again, settle our energy, ground ourselves so that we can deepen our intuitive connection to ourselves and the world around us. So dark moon, it's a lot harder to really see. It's a lot harder to really reflect on what is happening in our subconscious. And after yesterday, though, it was very illuminated, and now we get to apply that to life. And it might be, and it's likely to be uncomfortable. And based on today's reading and yesterday's reading, that seems to be the case. So let's look at the astrology. We're going to look at the chart here because just to give you, again, to just ground you into reality here, something about astrology, it is definitely a fourth dimensional tool, right? Because you are moving through time and space instantaneously when you look at astrology and you utilize astrology and the zodiac, because you are able to move through time when you move these charts forward or backwards for that matter. So this is a fourth dimensional tool. This allows us to move through time simultaneously and get a sense of those fixed points in time and how we are going to align with those consciously. And this is what astrology really is all about in terms of a modality and a practice and a set of archetypes in order to understand our experience. So today you're going to see the moon move into Pisces. So we've gone from a moon in Aquarius now going into the Pisces moon, which is where the full moon will be. With all of this, we got Venus, we got Neptune, of course, and the sun just passing Neptune in Pisces. So there is a lot of identification. There's a lot of sensitivity to this realm of the collective experience. And the peak experiences often do come in the Pisces realm because we connect with everything here. So when the moon moves into Pisces today, we're going to go from that almost detached and emotionally aloof, looking at things intellectually, but understanding and feeling them, to actually being in them. And with a dark moon in Pisces, this is very indicative of yesterday's outcome, which was the moon. We are not going to necessarily be able to separate our feelings from everything else, and we will submerge ourselves into the experience itself. And how we integrate that into the rest of our experience is going to be the name of the game today. And it won't be easy. I personally can feel the come down after yesterday. All you have to do is look at the animals in your house or around you, and you can tell usually energetically what's going on. They went from bouncing off the walls to being almost just spastic yesterday to now being very mellow. They're already napping, usually by, all morning they're running around, the cats in my house. And so they're much more chill today. So you can tell that there has been kind of this, like I said, this peak experience. And now it's about how do we bring it back into our practical everyday reality. And this might be more disappointing and almost cumbersome in some ways. So but we will feel it very strongly with the moon moving into Pisces. And it may not be the most pleasant experience, but we will have so much to learn from this situation as per usual. Some other things that are important is that Uranus has moved into the next degree of Taurus. So in terms of Sabian symbols, it is now at 9 degrees, 8 to 9 degrees. So we round up for the Sabian symbols. So here's Uranus right here. Now we've gone from the anticipation of the cycle to the ability to create our own sense of happiness in the darkest points of it. So again, there's something to consider here for the next few weeks where Uranus is that we are being tested in our ability to be able to see what is to come, but also and bring that into the present moment to create happiness in the darkest of places. It's gone from expecting what's coming to our practice in that moment of darkness while still being able to see. And Uranus is the collective third eye. And so again, this is the ability to tap into what's to come and bring that into the present moment so that we can create a sense of happiness. This is also about connecting to the highest version of what we are creating, being a conscious creator of the situation, being able to resonate with that fixed point in time that we know is there, which is, the evolution of humanity, and being able to bring that into the present moment and create something beautiful and rejuvenating in the darkest of moments. The symbol is a fully decorated Christmas tree. And it's the idea that even though outside of us it's dark, it's cold, it's snowy, there's not much going on, we collectively have managed to bring the celebration and the warmth and the camaraderie of the holidays, right? The Yule time, Christmas, however you see it, Hanukkah, all of that stuff, bring it into our immediate environment and be able to bring it into our immediate environment and be able to utilize that to create something beautiful. Anyway, now what's going to be a challenge today, I think, is Mars moving through Gemini. There is an inevitability here with Gemini in this dualistic aspect where, eventually, when one side gets too much, the other side will have to compensate. And 5 degrees of Gemini is absolutely a very expressive call to action, right? That we want to reach beyond the established forms because they are getting too big, right? This one side is getting too big and heavy and fat, right? And so in order for there to be a balance, the other side has to reach out and establish itself so that there can be balance again. And with Mars in this position, there's such a strong tendency to lash out, to make demands, to try to actualize ourselves and our own ego, right? Mars is the ruler of Aries. Aries is about the ego consciousness, and the ego is nothing more than the part of our psyche that is there to protect us and to protect our sense of identity and self. It's an important part of the overall human psyche, but it's not the only thing, and that's where we get lost. But with Mars here in this position today, it's very likely that there is going to be a very strong, expressive need to balance things out when it comes to our own actualization and individuation and acting on something that is expressing ourselves. Now, the square to a moon in Pisces at 5 degrees is much more about how every single instance, every single event, every single interaction can be seen as holy and sanctified within the context of the collective, right? Pisces is about the collective experience from a spiritual and feeling-based position. So for all of this the square here is the challenge that emotionally, if we can really see things from a position of every activity, every event, every feeling that even we have is an opportunity to see the larger spiritual sanctified picture, right? Even the most mundane tasks can be seen as spiritually significant. This can for as uncomfortable and seemingly, this is a lot of mutable energy with Pisces and Gemini. And the moon is our own personal feelings, right? Our own emotional landscape that changes just as quickly as the moon transits. But in this moment, oh, wow, we're going to want to reach out and actualize ourselves, demand something for ourselves in terms of what has been. We want balance. For our own sake. And if we can lean into this square here that is giving us a chance to emotionally see that everything, now it's not to say we shouldn't reach out, right? It's not to say that we shouldn't want balance and things to be equitable, especially in the terms of ideas and communication, right? That's what really Gemini is about, the movement of information. But if we lean into the square, lean into the discomfort, we can see that there is something to learn and there's something spiritual about every single thing around us. That's part of seeing everything through God's eyes. And so we had that peak experience yesterday, and now it's about bringing that back down into our everyday life. And this will be where the challenge comes from. There's... And the nodes have now shifted. The nodes move in a retrograde fashion naturally as compared to everything else in the zodiac. So the nodes have moved now back into the 14 to 15 degree range, which is, again, is about the communication aspect. Gemini, 15 degrees Gemini is two children talking to each other and exchanging their knowledge. So not quite telepathy, but it's about clarifying your own experience through actual contact with people, like-minded individuals, right? We may not get very far with people we don't share a lot of commonality with, but we will be able to clarify our own experiences when we are actually communicating with each other, sharing our ideas, and coming to some sort of consensus about what is reality, at least in that moment. The South Node in Sagittarius, this is the groundhog coming out and looking, is it going to be winter? Is it going to be spring? Being able to anticipate what's coming. And as valuable as that is, we've already been there. We can't really afford to keep doing that. I would say that the real movement towards our collective evolution, right? The North Node is about exchanging information with each other, the movement of energy. And even though Mars is going to be very dynamic in this process and demanding in some ways that there is an exchange and almost a forceful exchange, we can still see and lean into how, as uncomfortable as it is, it's still part of the entire experience. And even that discomfort and that uncomfortable situation can be seen as sanctified, can be seen as holy, can be seen as just as valuable spiritually as any other. It's the peak experience, right? So bringing it back down to earth. So let's look at the actual reading today. So we can get a sense of these archetypes that we are working with. So I'm going to minimize this here, and we're going to look at this reading. I hope everybody is doing well and taking care of themselves. It's been an intense couple of days, and yesterday definitely was a peak for sure. So here we are with the reading for this morning, the transmission that's coming through, and just... we're battered, we're a little bruised, we got some notches. There's something to be said for our battle, of course, and a struggle to survive. I think there's been a strong struggle to survive, but we find ourselves in this moment that we've gotten seemingly everything that we want. We have this wealth, we have all of this abundance, everything is here for us. But if it doesn't have something, it becomes dull, and, there's no feeling here when it's not directed. This wealth is not directed towards another goal. That's the thing about the 10, right? The 10 of discs at the heart of this reading. When it's reversed, right? It's not directed anywhere, and the cycle is not completing necessarily. So Mercury in Virgo, Mercury's ruler of Virgo, this is really about everything we need coming to us and being here. But the fact that it's reversed, I mean, we're kind of like, okay, so now what? Right? Again, bringing the peak experience down to reality. It manifested itself. It culminated to a certain extent, but now we're sitting on it and it's like we're getting fat and lazy, right? That's kind of, from a mundane perspective, this card reversed like this. Views of the ego at the root here. Ooh, that came through really strong. That really hit home personally and was kind of like, ouch, but also very, very relevant. Because if we are emotionally rooted in our own ego, just only seeing ourselves in the mirror, not having this perspective, this is why the communication is so important right now, to clarify our experience, despite maybe having our feelings hurt or being, just kind of not really sure what's happening. That tower moment yesterday, maybe it's still lingering. Maybe we're really having a hard time in this moon phase. Of course, with the dark moon in Pisces, it can really be very confusing and disempowering. And with Mars, again, we're just looking at ourselves in the mirror. This is what I want. This is my trajectory. These are my feelings. But if this is the root of things here, you can see the Dominion, Two of Wands reversed too. I mean, this is not very... there's a lot of restlessness here. We don't have dominion over ourselves at this point when we don't have a direction for all of this abundance, if we don't have anywhere to, direct it other than our own satisfaction. This is where you get fat and lazy because you're just like, it's all mine. And then when it comes around to this dominion, this activation that the Two of Wands is supposed to represent, it's just more destructive and shameless and revenge. Ooh, revenge is a big one. When you have this view of the ego also at the root of things energetically, we can, rather than taking responsibility for ourselves and how we got into this position, we can project those feelings of hurt out on revenge. And so that's something to be mindful of. There's some good guidance here today. We definitely want to know, our awareness is focused on perception and interpretation, right? The Oracle of Delphi. And we want to know, we want to get that information. We want to understand this peak experience. And how we interpret it is going to have a lot to do with where that filter is. We talked so much about this yesterday, about the filter of our trauma. And if we have a filter of trauma, then it doesn't matter what we perceive, that interpretation, regardless of how psychic and intuitive we are, how much of a channel we are, if we have not dealt with that and the shadow, right, and the view of the ego here, then it doesn't matter. So there's good guidance, and we're going to talk about it towards the end as we go through each of these. So the Seven of Wands is Mars and Leo, valor, right? This is about the struggle to survive. There has been a lot of struggle to survive. We've put so much effort into surviving, to actualizing ourselves, to being the full version of who we are. That is Leo, creative self-expression, the Kundalini rising, us being the fullest of who we are, and passionate, right? And we've been struggling to survive. That is about Mars as the warrior. So you see, it's got some notches here. It has got, it's a little crooked, but it's still out in front. And all of these other wands are in the backdrop supporting this. We do have to face up to forces that are stronger than us. And this has certainly been the energy coming into the moment, is that we've had to stand up to things that are stronger than us and give us the struggle. It has been the impetus for us to struggle to survive. In situations that seem hopeless. They do seem hopeless. And so this speaks a lot about what we've already come through. And this peak experience kind of showed us, how far we've actually come and the struggle that we've gone through, and maybe the notches that have been, and the injury that's been sustained, but we're still here. They're still standing, right? It makes me think of that Elton John song of I'm Still Standing. That's a great song. Listen to that if you want to get pumped up and kind of encourage yourself to keep going. So this is the energy coming into the moment. And there is a lot of courage and fighting spirit. And we've gone through so much and we have some stories to tell from this situation. But now here, coming into the moment, that's 10 of discs reversed like this. This is fat and lazy and blind wealth and greed for more, right? We've already accumulated so much as a result of our struggle. And here we are with everything that we actually need, but we can't even see it, right? Because we had our peak experience, whatever it was, and now we have to integrate it into life. And maybe we want to go back to that peak experience. Maybe we want to keep, that is the real challenge. And I'll tell you what, that is my midheaven in Scorpio, is to be able to take that peak experience and bring it back into our everyday life. And so where the sun is right now in Pisces is more about the collective peak experience coming back into reality. It's coming down from the mountain with the tablets and being like, okay, this is what we actually have to do now. We have all the implements. We have all the tools. We have all the resources. This is 10 of discs, and it's time for the cycle to complete and apply it to the next version. But we are not seeing this, right? Maybe we're still stuck in the struggle. Maybe we're still floating around in the peak experience because we don't want to come back down to earth. But when the wealth gets big, it needs to be concentrated on something, right? The cycle has to come back around and the ace needs to be initiated again. Otherwise, we get dull, right? We don't, and our feelings are impoverished. And that's something that we really need to watch out for, because if we can't figure out how to apply this peak experience, whatever it was, because even if it's a struggle, it still takes you out. It forces you to be present, even in the most challenging situations. If you've ever noticed that, if you are forced into a crisis moment of whatever, emotional, material, whatever, it forces you into this moment of presence. And in some ways that in itself is exciting. And I'm not saying that, and some people get addicted to this, so that's something to keep in mind too. But whatever this peak experience was, where a realization, and go through a crisis that teaches you something, we're in this moment now where we haven't gotten enough, and there seems to be a dullness here, and fat and lazy, like just keep giving it to us. I don't want to apply it to anything because I'm still stuck in the struggle, right? Well, when we do this, again, you saw the outcome, that there is no real dominion over our potential subjective experience anymore of trying to actualize ourselves. It just becomes something destructive and full of revenge. And so this is what we have to watch out for. Now, again, the Oracle of Delphi is a character, a person. She is above she's a vessel, right? And there's two parts of this, right? She's the vessel or the priestess, and the priest there is the interpreter. This is the mercurial energy, taking that information and applying it into manifestation. In this case, it's really about just perception and interpretation. So at the top of our awareness, we are looking for the answers, right? We want information. We want to hold the inspiration. We want to get the downloads. We want to get the, all of, however you characterize this type of, experience of being an oracle. Now, what happens? She's sitting over this fissure, and the steam that's coming out is probably infused with a certain types of minerals that change your consciousness. If you've ever been to, geothermal hot springs, sometimes they have high levels of lithium, natural lithium in there, and that will change your consciousness. Even just going into a sweat lodge in general and having that experience will shift your consciousness. But so she's getting the information as an oracle, but it's about the interpretation that is important. And these two factors have to be aligned with each other to have real insight. So at the top of our awareness and in our conscious mind, we are looking to get this insight. We are looking to interpret what we are perceiving. We do know that we've had this peak experience in some way, shape, or form, and we want to get information. We want to get inspiration about it. But at the root of things is the view of the ego. All we're seeing is ourselves, okay? All we're seeing is ourselves. Thoughtless, selfish, self-absorbed, and dismissive. Now, this could be somebody in our life, but the fact that it's at the subconscious energetic root suggests to me that if we are still struggling and we're feeling a dullness of our mind and we just want more and more and more and we're not applying what we've learned, it's because we are only thinking about ourselves and the ego, right? And this is, again, Mars is in a position today where if we don't have this in check, if we do not feel that every experience, good, bad, whatever, is sanctified as part of God's plan, as God's and universal consciousness and something to learn. If we don't get this in check, right, then of course our dominion over our potential energy is not going to be beneficial at all. We're just going to keep struggling, probably within ourselves. So at the root here, energetically, is the view of the ego. We only see ourselves, and there are people and attendants, but we don't even see them, right? It's just all about us, and we're really self-absorbed. And this is a generalized reading, okay? And so some of the most important work you can do if you really want to make change outside of you is to start dealing with this inside of each of us, right? And how does staying in this resonance actually help? Because it really doesn't. So again, the ego is an important structure. It helps us survive. It helps us activate ourselves, but it's not the only thing. And when we get caught here, if we get caught here, then we can't see anything else. And we certainly can't feel how everything is in divine order if we're stuck here emotionally. Okay. Now, I talked about this, the dominion, right? The Two of Wands. Now, something to consider is that this card looks seemingly the same if it's upright or reversed, right? You just have these two wands. So it's going to be hard to tell the difference between what is an inappropriate dominion over our potency and our actualizing power and what is inappropriate. So the two things that, well, the one thing actually that makes it you have to pay attention. It's subtle, right? It's subtle because look, the points are facing up. The points are facing up. And the head, there's kind of like a gesture actually, are facing down when it's reversed like this. We are not keeping our sense of humor. We are not keeping this perspective on top of things in terms of where we're going. It's just the point of the dagger that is actually upright. And so we're just going to be piercing through stuff. We're not really going to have a higher perspective about it. We're just going to be going after things, right? Because it started with a sense of struggle that actually had a lot to teach us. But now the outcome of all of these things is we have to get it under control we have to get our ego in check and be real with ourselves. And that, again, is part of bringing the peak experience down. This is why some people have a really hard time as spiritual people, whatever the hell that means anymore, staying in their higher dimensions of reality and not coming back down. And that's kind of the spiritual bypassing, right? Not coming back down to their own reality and be like, I'm a human being, and this is how I engage my ego, right? I talked about this. Somebody brought something up this morning on social media about how difficult it is to realize that so much of what we have been told and taught is a lie, and why it's so difficult to wrap our heads around. And one of the things I said was that, well, a good place to start is to look at your own behavior and realize, ask yourself, be honest with yourself. How do I lie and distort the truth in order to get what I want from people? We all do it. Don't fool yourself. And so when you can't come back down to earth, when you can't apply that peak experience to your actual life, you're not being real with yourself. And you certainly aren't being real with yourself how you can be, just as equally shitty person as the next person, right? We all do it. But once we see that, then we have compassion for other people. We are able to see it in other form that may be more difficult to see, right? When we see how we do it, then we can see how other people are doing it. But if we do not get all this in check, then like I said, our potency and our desire to create something, to actualize ourselves is just going to be combative. And like I said, with Mars today, it's such a strong potential if we don't actually presently and consciously engage with the energy that is being presented to us as an opportunity to learn from. This is why astrology is so important, right? It's not fate in the sense it tells you what's going to happen. It gives you the benchmarks that you can make conscious choices on how to resonate with the unfolding geometric pattern that is the time wave. Okay, so there's some good guidance today. Number one, with the Oracle of Delphi, we want information, we want answers. If we want our perception, if we want our interpretation to be pure as our perception. So one of the things is this King of Keys. This is a person who's goal-oriented. This is a person who's confident. This is a person who is in charge of themselves and their material reality. Okay. They're not necessarily trying to there's nothing here about this person overpowering anybody else. There's nobody else in this picture. And in fact, his kingdom is off in the distance. He's able to take a wide view. And he's also, he's armored, right? He has his weapon, but he's not completely armored. He feels safe. He's confident. Now, goal-oriented rather than people-oriented. So being goal-oriented about your material reality is important. Again, finding those things that you can do with your body, because the animal that came out is the grouse. Express yourself through rhythm and movement. Now, this is, drumming, dancing, whatever it is, physical labor. The King of Keys is goal-oriented about his material reality, and he's gotten to be where he is because of that. And so whatever it is you need to do with your body, your physical reality, your material reality, if you want your interpretation to not be distorted by your emotional connection to your ego, for instance, right? This can really help move the energy through your body, whatever you do, right? I'm going to go shovel gravel into a ditch for the next couple hours and sweat, right? And take responsibility for my material reality, which is the drainage in my house, right? Something that's just an example. You can do anything, but you have to take some responsibility for your material reality if you want to be in charge of your material reality. And again, this is how you bring the peak experience down, is using rhythm, right? Using the rhythm of in your body to balance the energy, to flow, to have your chi flowing. That way your interpretation is more balanced and clear. When things are stagnant in your field, wherever it is, that is clouding your ability to interpret things clearly. And through God's eyes, right? We feel that peak experience. Again, how do we bring it down to the human level? So this is just an example of something that you can do. Now, when it comes to views of the ego, this rattlesnake, this is about initiation, and this is about shedding skin. So if you feel like your ego and your pride, your feelings have been hurt, and you are only seeing yourself in that mirror, if you can take a step back just a little bit and see that situation is allowing you to be initiated to shed that old skin, right? Transmutation. Everything is an opportunity to experience the whole, right? 5 degrees of Pisces, moon squaring Mars. It's about the initiation, not necessarily into a healer, but a healer of the self, right? You can certainly guide other people through this process as well. But if you're feeling that if your ego is being triggered because your feelings have been hurt and whatever it is, just know that there is it's part of this process to help you transmute and to shed that old skin and to come into new form as well. And along with that, the Buddha prepares, right? You don't have to necessarily act on anything. In fact, you can certainly act on what is in front of you, right? With the grouse, the King of Keys, taking responsibility for the world around you, your material reality. But from a spiritual perspective, right? From an energetic perspective, you can take the time to prepare yourself, take the time to get your inner power, right? Everything here is an opportunity and a lesson. So rather than act on it, utilize those experiences to teach you something. And part of that is going within and being still. And again, that's how your interpretation can be clear when you go into perception. If you go into this state, for instance, and you're really struggling, which is normal, by the way. Some people are just like, I can't meditate. And I was like, well, that's why it's called a practice. Get used to it. You practice it every day. If you're struggling with your thoughts and you're not being able to settle, then give yourself some extra time. Get into the zone. Let everything settle down so that you can get a clear version and connect back into that peak experience. See, that's something that is always accessible to you now. Whatever that was, whatever you learned, whatever you felt, it's accessible. So you go back to that by going into this state here. The Buddha prepares, right? Number 13 is the death card, right? And so you are in stillness. You are in acceptance. You are realizing that everything you need is within you and that you have every ability to cultivate that yourself, right? You don't need any outside, you don't need anything outside to be a certain way in order. That's the ego talking. You don't need it. It's only us, right? And there are actual practices that you can engage in that can really help this along as well. And to realize, again, the initiation, the shedding of the skin, the transmutation. We are every single moment being conditioned and step by step upgrading. But this is spiritual work is so difficult. This is why religion makes it a lot easier in some ways, because you just follow the doctrine and, and it's good to have a system, of course. And it's good to have practices. And this is important, right? Because so you don't have to always overthink everything, but it's not easy work to do this, but it's essential. And when we have these peak experiences, if we don't know how to come back down to earth and integrate them, then they're kind of pointless, right? And some people just stay in them, and that's how they bypass reality. And if you're here and you're still in form, then you are here to be part of this transition in some way, shape, or form. So it is each of our responsibility to do the work on ourselves in order to get to this place. So pretty heavy message for today, but I feel like that it's important. I certainly needed to hear it. Sometimes you just need somebody to be like, stop feeling sorry for yourself and do something about it. And realize that nothing is going to come to you unless you initiate it on some level. And you have to be in resonance to what you want to manifest. It's not just going to drop into your lap. And that comes even with, that's even deeper than just material aspects. That has a lot to do with our entire life. So that's the transmission for today. Thank you so much for being here. I truly, truly appreciate it. If you like this content, you find it valuable, please consider subscribing either BitChute or on YouTube. Hit the like button. It really helps independent content creators get their information, get their content out, right? YouTube is consistently squashing independent content creators like myself. And it's not even about message necessarily. It's really just about independent content creators. If they can't monetize you, they don't have a reason to push you out. So, Every subscription really does help for small accounts like this. And if you're interested in reading, want to know your starseed lineage, if you need some energy work to help with this process, you can go to catalystenergies.net, sign up for the mailing list so that you can get announcements about upcoming presentations and anything else I want to share. Telegram, Facebook, it's all in the description box. You know what to do. You guys are tech savvy. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. Like I said, I love you. I mean that. And we're doing great. So take care of yourselves. I'll see you tomorrow.